Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a source text that's, well, it's incredibly ancient, over 5,100 years old. But the commentators we're looking at insist it's perfectly usable right now as a kind of instruction manual for, well, for being human. We're diving into the Shrimad Bhagwat Gita, a practical guide. And our mission really is to take that seriously, to treat this text as if it is that manual, provided by the Creator for using all our tools, mind, intellect, senses effectively. What are the principles that still hold up?
And the setting, where this whole conversation starts, it's absolutely key. The dialogue kicks off because Arjuna, who's this educated, really valiant warrior, he's standing on the Dharmakshatra, the battlefield of righteousness, but he just becomes completely paralyzed, total confusion, emotional turmoil. And that's when he turns to Lord Krishna for help. The teaching flows right from that moment of breakdown.
Right, that feeling of being completely stuck.
Exactly. And what makes it so relevant for us, I think, is this modern paradox. We live in this age of intense competition, right? And we get these messages like, just pursue your goals, mechanically, or always follow your heart. But the text kind of hints that this often leads to, well, inner disintegration.
Yeah, you see that, don't you?
You do. People reach what looks like the absolute peak success, comfort, luxury, but inside they're just tormented. There's this deep dissatisfaction they can't shake. The Gita basically promises a way to cut through the confusion that causes that feeling.
That feeling, yeah, that internal hollowness when everything on the outside looks perfect. That's the problem it's trying to solve. So, okay, if we had to nail it down right away, what's the core solution, the life philosophy?
Fundamentally, it's the principle of equanimity. The idea in the text is that any complete philosophy has to work on all levels for you, your family, society, the whole nation. And achieving that balance, having the strength to face any situation, it really boils down to staying perfectly balanced.
Balanced how?
Balanced in faith, doing your duty but without being attached to the results,
Yeah.
and offering up everything, the actions and the fruits of those actions, offering it all to the divine.
Okay. Equanimity. Performing duty without attachment. That's the foundation. Now, let's get into what I found, frankly, the most surprising part of the commentary right at the start. This whole massive physical war. It's presented first as a metaphor for the human mind. It's an internal battle before anything else.
It is, exactly. And this isn't just like a literary device. It's diagnostic. The location itself, Dharmakshatra, Kurukshetra, the holy fields where the battle happens, that's explicitly our own mind.
Our mind is the battlefield.
Yes. It's where that constant, really intense struggle happens every single second, actually, between our, higher aspirations, the divine stuff, and all those lower tendencies we have.
Wow. Okay.
And the symbolism gets really detailed. Think about your senses like sight, hearing, touch. The text calls them fire. They're always seeking more input, right?
Constantly needing fuel.
Precisely. And the worldly objects, the things we crave, look at, listen to, those are the ghee. The clarified butter that fuels that fire, these clusters of sensory objects, the things that grab our attention, they're even called villages of ghee. And together, they make up the kingdom of Dhritarashtra.
Villages of ghee. So the world around us is structured to feed this inner fire, this chaos. Is that the idea?
That's a big part of it. We're constantly feeding the flames of our senses. And that fire, it creates a whole psychological structure, the nervous system, the pathways carrying that sensory information, that electrical impulse. That's called the land of the Gandharvas.
Okay.
And the experience that arises from that impulse, whether it's pleasure or pain, that gets personified as Gandhari.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I follow this. We've got the fuel worldly objects feeding the fire, our senses. That interaction creates pleasure or pain carried by the nervous system. And our whole psychological makeup is built on that feedback loop.
You've got it. That's the framework.
So where do the inner enemies, the bad guys in this metaphor, come from?
They arise directly from that loop. The memory of pleasure leads to attachment wanting more. The memory of pain leads to aversion wanting to avoid. And as you go through life, you collect countless attachments and aversions. They build up in the mind. These become stored impressions. The text calls them samskaras. And these samskaras, they subtly influence every single choice you make, every action you take.
Okay, so these stored impressions, the samskaras, they're like the background programming.
Exactly. And that's where the army of negative tendencies, the Kauravas in the story, is born. These stored impressions give rise to all sorts of mental disturbances. Desire, anger, greed, delusion, jealousy. They are the 100 sons of the blind king, Dhritarashtra. They represent these demonic habits that can take over your whole personality.
Like the inner committee arguing for instant gratification or Or
Yeah.
procrastination, maybe?
Yes, precisely that inner team demanding self-sabotage, avoidance, instant fixes. That's the Karavala army within.
Okay, so the real goal isn't necessarily winning some external fight, but gaining inner victory over that army. The one built from our own baggage, essentially.
That's the setup. And the art of winning that inner victory, well, that's what the Gita promises to teach.
We've set up the internal battlefield. But, to really grasp how this inner chaos paralyzes someone like Arjuna, we need the external context too. We need to look at that moment where his duty clashed head-on with his feelings.
Right. The historical situation is crucial for understanding his dilemma. Very briefly, the root of the war was between two sets of cousins. You had the blind king Dhritarashtra and his brother Pandu. Pandu died young. Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana was just consumed by greed and jealousy. He, along with his father, repeatedly denied the rightful heir, Yudhishthira, who is Pandu's eldest son, his share of the kingdom.
So classic dynastic struggle, but fueled by something darker.
Very much so. Immense jealousy, lots of deceit. It all culminated in this horrific public humiliation of Draupadi, the Pandava's wife. That made war pretty much inevitable. So the conflict forces the 5 Pandava brothers, who are seen as fighting for righteousness, for dharma, to face their 100 Kaurava cousins.
And the armies lined up. They're huge and filled with people they know, right?
Oh, absolutely terrifying. The Kaurava side, led by Duryodhana, has these towering figures like Bhishma, the grandsire of the clan, and Dronacharya, the revered teacher.
People they love and respect.
Exactly. But they're bound by loyalty to the throne, even though many knew the Pandavas had justice on their side. And the Pandavas, they have heroes like Bhima and Arjuna, but crucially, they have Lord Krishna. Though Krishna chose only to be Arjuna's charioteer, not to fight himself, they're literally facing their own elders.
Imagine that, having to fight your grandfather, your teacher.
It's an impossible situation.
Yeah.
And that very first moment on the battlefield, it's pure psychological warfare. When the Pandavas blow their conches, these massive war horns, like Krishna's Panchajanya, Arjuna's Devadatta, Bhima's Pandra, the sound is described as just earth-shattering. It reverberates everywhere, and the text says it literally pierced the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons. Fear struck the Kauravas first.
Wow. So the stage is set, then Arjuna makes his move. This is where the core teaching really begins, isn't it? He asks Krishna, his charioteer, to drive the chariot right into the middle, between the two armies. And he looks out, and he sees everyone, uncles, grandfathers, teachers, friends, cousins, sons, all poised to kill each other.
And the sight just breaks him.
Completely. The description in Chapter 1 is so vivid. His limbs give way, his mouth goes dry, his body starts trembling, his hair stands on end, and crucially, his famous bow, the Gandiva, slips from his hand. He physically can't stand steady. He's just overwhelmed by anxiety, despair, depression, really.
Total physical and mental breakdown. And then comes his reasoning, which is fascinating because it sounds so noble on the surface.
Right. He says things like, I don't want victory, I don't want the kingdom or pleasures. He says, what good is there in killing my own kinsmen?
Exactly. It sounds like high principle. But his deepest fear, when you unpack it, isn't just the killing, it's the fear of sin. He's terrified of the consequences, the destruction of the family structure, what he calls sanatana kuladharma, the eternal family duties.
Kuladharma, the foundation of society in his view.
Yes, he fears that if the families are destroyed, women will be corrupted, society will collapse into chaos with mixed castes, Varna Sankara, and even the ancestors will fall from heaven because the rites won't be performed. It's a total societal and spiritual collapse he envisions.
So it's a much bigger fear than just personal loss.
It is. But this specific reaction, this paralysis driven by emotion, is what the source commentary calls the Arjuna syndrome. It's not just grief. It's when a person, completely swayed by their personal feelings and sentiment, retreats from their necessary rightful duty.
Okay, hold on. That sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? I mean, isn't his grief understandable? Seeing his grandfather across the battlefield, when does compassion become a sensitive?
That's a fair question. According to the text perspective, it becomes paralysis when your personal feeling, however valid or noble it seems in the moment, stops you from doing what's required for the greater good, for upholding righteousness or societal order. The commentary gives a modern parallel. Imagine A commander-in-chief who suddenly embraces absolute nonviolence right when the country is under attack.
Okay, yeah.
Or the example used in the source, a high official who refuses to sign a legally required order, maybe even a difficult one, like a death sentence mandated by law, because it violates their personal feelings, even if that refusal harms the society they're meant to serve.
I see the distinction now. It's about personal ethics versus, let's say, institutional duty or the demands of Dharma in that specific critical moment. He's required to do something incredibly difficult, deeply unpleasant, and his emotions are stopping him cold.
Precisely. The teaching that follows argues that true righteousness isn't found in dodging difficult duties, even horrible ones. It's found in performing them, but with clarity, with objectivity, and crucially, with detachment from the outcome. Arjuna is just crippled by sorrow, vishada, and fear. He throws down his bow, sinks into his chariot, and that complete emotional collapse, the yoga of Arjuna's despondency, sets the stage perfectly for Krishna's wisdom.
So if I boil this down again, the Gita is saying our real enemy isn't usually the person across the battlefield. It's that inner structure we've built, attachments, aversions, those samskaras based on past experiences. That's the Kaurava army inside us.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately paralyzes us when duty, especially difficult duty, calls.
You've nailed it. That's the psychological diagnosis. And that leads directly into Krishna's response, which unfolds over the next chapters. Krishna immediately tackles Arjuna's core fear by explaining the true nature of the self, the Atman. He tells him it's eternal, it's indestructible.
So trying to free him from the fear of death itself.
Exactly. Understanding that liberates him from that fundamental fear. And then Krishna teaches him karma yoga, the path of selfless action, selfless duty.
Right. And this seems to be the core practical advice the text gives us. This idea of selfless duty, doing what needs to be done without getting tangled up in the results. That's the mechanism that stops sin, or maybe we could say negative karma, from sticking to you.
That's the promise. Action performed in that spirit doesn't bind you, it liberates you. Which brings us, I think, to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe carry forward from this first chapter. The source commentary says something really profound here. It says that Arjuna's sorrow, that deep vishada, that moment where you fully recognize your own confusion, your inner conflict, and you feel that intense longing for clarity, that state isn't failure. It's actually the very first, absolutely necessary step towards self-realization, towards inner freedom. You have to see the problem before you can solve it.
So the despair itself can be the starting point.
It can be the doorway. So the question we might leave you with is this. Look at your own life right now. Is there some confusion, some necessary duty, maybe an unpleasant one that you're currently trying to avoid, retreating from? And if so, what's the real cost of that avoidance? Not just externally, but internally, to your own sense of balance, your own equanimity.
That is definitely something powerful to contemplate. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into this incredible, enduring manual for life, exploring equanimity and detached action. We'll see you next time.